Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. And it's me, Tony Harmer, subbing for Mads today, who's feeling a bit poorly. And so I've jumped in to help her out. So welcome to another Adobe Live here from the UK. And you'll find us here Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays throughout the week at the same time, midday. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, that's fine. You can do that, but you won't be able to get involved in the chat. So come along to behance.net/Adobe Live. And you can join us, get involved with the community, ask questions, and speak to our amazing guest, who today is illustrator, designer, and cultural encyclopedia, Bárbara Fonseca. How are you doing?
Hi, team. I'm good. How are you? Yeah, I'm doing
Very
great.
good.
Ready to share some more weird knowledge.
It's all good. So just so you know, everybody, just in the chat there and watching, we were chatting in the green room beforehand, and we're having a lovely time and talking. I've just got a list of cultural references that I need to look up at the weekend. It's so epic, really good already. So we have a fantastic community here, Bárbara, that will be checking your work out. I'm just going to say hi to a few of those because they've been with us right since this started, and many of them, I don't think have missed a single session here. So, of course, we've got some guy called Tim. I think he's in the background somewhere. We've got Andreas.
I heard he has a beautiful voice.
He has got a beautiful voice. And Sean. Oh, both there. So, Guten Tag, chaps. There we go. So, Sandrine's here. Stuart is here. Oh, it looks like we've also got Linda. Hi, Linda. And we've got Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Yes, Maddie's very well, Jackie. She's not very well. She's just a bit under the weather, not quite up to being on camera today. So she's fine. Gareth is here. Hi, Gareth. Let's see who else we've got. Angus is here. Fantastic. Maddie is there in the chat. Oh, fantastic. I hope you feel better later, lovey. And yes, so Bárbara.
Me, hello.
I think we should have a little bit of an introduction to you and your work, what you're going to be showing us today. So I think if I hand that over to you, and as the questions come into the chat, I'll just pop them across.
Awesome. Yeah, so my name is Bárbara Fonseca, and I'm an illustrator and graphic designer from Portugal. I've been working now for around 10 years, both, as I said, as a graphic designer and illustrator. And lately, I've also developed kind of a focus on character design. I've had the opportunity to work on some really cool character design projects. And I also teach it. I'm also a teacher at the Berlin School of Communication for Character Design. Hello to any of my students who might be out there. And today I'm going to make a little intro about, I'm going to explain a little bit my character design process, and I will kind of show it with the focus on a project that I worked with the amazing director, Chris Vigant. She asked me to help her out with the art direction and character design for a video for TED Education. And we've done that together during quarantine. It was kind of like our winter quarantine project that we were both we did it a bit together, but also kind of remotely. And it was a really cool project, and I'm super happy to share it with you guys. And if we have some time, we might still be able to try and turn another deep sea creature into a character. But let's see, how much time we have. Yeah, that's going to be the focus for today. Yeah.
Fabulous. That's great stuff. By the way, I know Chris. Chris and I worked together for a period last year as well.
Oh, cool.
And I've now just realised where I saw one of your pieces of work from, because she showed me something as we were going on. So I'm excited to see how this all worked out. Really good.
Yeah. So you saw the project before it was completed?
I saw just a few bits from the early stages of it. So, but Chris is lovely, and she's so talented. Hopefully she'll come and join us over here. One day as well. But let's focus on your stuff right now. So great that you work with her. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So maybe I can show you a little bit of the slides. I can introduce a little bit of my work. Can you guys see the slides?
Yeah, coming up now. So we should see those now. Yeah.
Cool. So first of all, I just want to introduce you a little bit to kind of like my character design style and kind of like some of the work I've been doing so far and give you some context. This was a character design project that I did for lake coloring. It was kind of like a project where I really wanted to try and draw creatures. And this was very helpful when I worked on the TED project because I used to just draw people, which, you know, I think it's something that illustrators do a lot because, you know, it's what's closer to us. But on this project, I really wanted to kind of like challenge myself. And I think it was very helpful to then be able to draw the creatures for TED Ed, just because I really had to understand, you know, how to turn an animal into a proper character and not just draw it as an animal, which I think in people it's a bit easier to do, but in animals or creatures, that's a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
So this was a project where I tried to do exactly that and really challenge myself. And this is a firebird. I don't know if I'm super into cryptozoology, another weird cultural fact. And this was the focus of this project was just crypto monsters kind of. And yeah, this is what I did here. So just for some more context with the storytelling and the character design, because this is something that we'll also talk about. This is a project that I worked on by myself. This was kind of like a sci-fi feminist adaptation of Gilgamesh. I don't know if you know this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite stories. I'm super into stories, but I didn't agree so much with a lot of what was happening with Gilgamesh. So I really tried to kind of like change it a little bit. And yeah, on this one, I was also trying to challenge myself and to draw kind of like more backgrounds and also more kind of like machines and space stuff. And I'm kind of like talking about these things as well, just to give you an idea of kind of like the preparation that goes into projects, because with the TED project, I had to design all the backgrounds and some of the graphs and the creatures. And I think like all of these projects were kind of like preparation for it. It's just really always trying to push myself and draw things that I can't. And then see if I manage or not. So far it's been okay, but
yeah, I think you're doing it quite successfully. But a couple of things for you. But Claudie Vagine's in the chat, and she's loving the color palette. And Jackie is asking, do you create your shading using layer modes, or do you just create a darker shade of a color when you're working on?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes I use the multiply. I'm super addicted to multiply just because in my work, I really like to have a bit of I always like this tension between like the digital and the analog. And I've always worked digitally because I don't know how to do analog stuff. Computers were there first. So I always use computers to do everything. But yeah, for some of these, they are multiplies. But then sometimes I also use darker colors. I think in this case, it's multiply.
Yeah.
But I'm quite flexible. In the end, I end up using everything as long as it makes me get the result I want. And I'm super inconsistent. Like sometimes I'll use the layer, sometimes I'll use a darker color. But for this project in specific, I did that. And also, on this, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but like on the beard of this weird robot on the right, there I use the layer modes as well for the brightness. I use a white like stroke line. Yeah, and then I usually I make I lower the opacity. Yeah, this is also something I do. But yeah, I'm very inconsistent with techniques.
These are lovely.
Thanks.
I love the texture as well. Really subtle.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that I always want to have like a little bit of like this paper texture, and as I said, it's kind of like analog feel. I think it just makes things feel warmer somehow, and it's just the style that I eventually through the last years ended up having weirdly. Awesome. I'll show you something else, which is kind of, this is a project where I also did like some character work and some illustration work. This is more like of a corporate design piece where you can see characters also being used to kind of like send a corporate message, which is something that people have also been talked about with this kind of like corporate style of character design, which is a phenomenon that I'm super interested in. And this, I think it follows a little bit more that kind of design, but I still wanted them to have their own characteristics. But this was also kind of like a very specific kind of like character and design work where it really had to kind of like talk about the values and what the message of the company was. And I think this is also important with character design, is to have in mind that, you know, sometimes there's kind of like decorative graphic design, or sorry, there's also decorative graphic design, but more like decorative illustration and decorative character design. But sometimes you really have to kind of like follow a certain set of rules, or sometimes you also have to tell like really specific information with it. And this is one of the cases where that had to happen. And the same with the TED project, you'll see, because we had a very specific kind of like scientific script and information that we needed to give out to people. And that always gives us a little bit of restrictions that, in my view, are also interesting to be able to, you know, conquer and see if we can still do something super creative with it. All right, I'll show you guys something else. This is a project that I did. This is a case of more like a decorative character design. This is actually me in my creative process.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I was asked to design something about beginnings, and I thought that I could think about the beginning of my creative process, which is usually a bit like, I have a Pinterest board with like a million things, and I start to kind of like make groups and kind of start to compile stuff a little bit until there's an idea, or I see different paths to follow with my ideas. But yeah, this is kind of like me in the middle of my, me when I start a project. Intense, yeah.
Yes. Do you actually use big rolls of paper, or is that quite a bit of artistic license?
Always. It's very
so uncomfortable
for my studio. See, amazing. Yeah, very uncomfortable for my studio mates. And of course, the gigantic pencil, very annoying. They hate it.
I don't have a gigantic pencil.
You should. It's very.
Just give it a go.
Yeah, it's just very creative inducing, because you look like a fool, so then you're not afraid of foolish ideas.
Exactly. Make big marks. I like it.
Exactly. Yeah. Something else I want to share with you guys is a little bit of kind of like personal
I love these.
Thanks. That I also do. I think personal projects are like crazy important. Personal projects have been kind of like super helpful for me to find actual commission projects. And I wanted to share this one because I started kind of like my career as a comic artist. I did like a comic, and then I entered a comic competition back in Portugal, and that was really successful, and it made me want to do more things. And I haven't been back to comics so much because it's just so time consuming, but it's something that I'm super into, and I think it really kind of like made the connection for me with this kind of like character design, storytelling, you know, giving a message. And this is just an illustration I did last year when I moved to another new studio. This is my mate Robin and our little dog Rita, and I just wanted to kind of like express a certain kind of like feeling. And it was also autumn, and autumn in Berlin is super amazing, and I always want to draw it, so I just wanted to kind of like share a little bit of that kind of like feeling and emotions in this. And yeah, it was just a personal thing that I did. Also to experiment with style, because experimenting with style in commission work is not always super easy. So I also use personal work to experiment a lot with developing some kind of style. So this also leads us to something I also really like doing, that it's more connected to character design, is to kind of like bring the characters to life. I think that this maybe is like a dream of every person who illustrates, is like to have your character as a living thing. I mean, I think maybe I'm also too much of a fan of Frankenstein, but these were kind of like some attempts of, you know, kind of making the characters, I was kind of like imagining in my head 3-dimensional. And this was always kind of like a motivation for me, was to see, you know, how they would look in this more like 3-dimensional aspect. And I think that when Chris invited me to do the animation, that was really cool, because I was like, okay, finally, we're going to make the characters move, and we're going to give them a whole new life. So I think this is a super cool opportunity to do this. So here on the next slide, I have the video. Should we watch it?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Awesome. Let me see. Let me know if this works and if you can hear the sound.
Yeah, I think we're okay playing TED Ed stuff. I think we can see it because it's in context. I think that's fine.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
Hope so.
We try.
Perfect. Nice. These are really good.
Thanks. So
I mean, we're not getting the sound through, but that's actually fine.
Okay.
No, don't worry. But it's actually probably better that we're not. So we're not rebroadcasting it completely. But
all right. So we can also comment.
But no. So seeing these is great, but we can just chat about them as we go. I just these are great. I mean, I think this was the thing I saw, because there's the one that turns through 360, and Chris showed it to me.
Yeah. Because we wanted to really kind of like give this kind of like gamified aspect to the way the story was told, and I think that worked super well. I think because that we feel very invested in the character, and we also want to try to like escape with him. And I think that was a really good kind of like script and directing decision from Chris as well. It was a bit of a challenge. It was cool for me because I know a lot of people work in games, in mobile games. So I was like, help, please help me. How do I make this look like a game? But me and Chris built all of this kind of like massive mood board. I can show you after, as I have some images of the mood board where we had like things from like pictures of the fish, a lot of different games that we were kind of like taking inspiration from. And we really wanted to feel a bit like gamey and fun as well, because the fish is kind of like going through a lot of like challenges, and these characters are a bit like the bosses.
Yeah.
Like
that one's so epic.
yeah. People love that one. They're
it's like brilliant.
We did a quiz on Instagram to see which character was people's favorites, and it was definitely the Anglerfish. It was like, people love him. He's very cute though as well. This I think is the dragonfish. This one was a bit challenging because he was red at first, but then he had to have these kind of like red circles that had to be shiny. So we had to turn him into a dark color, which was like, that was a bit of a challenge with this. It's that most of them were not like super bright in color. They were like kind of brown. Because
they've got no use for color at the depth that they live in. That's the thing. It's not an advantage to have any color. Having said that, the beautiful bioluminescent creatures that are down there kind of belie that completely. But who knows what goes on? We know more about outer space than we know about the organisms that live at those depths. You know, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I actually wanted to, like, for the little challenge afterwards, I wanted to do the blobfish, because I know people love the blobfish. But then I was really sad about it because I found out that he actually doesn't look like that when he's underwater. and he
Yeah.
only looks that ugly because he's outside of his environment, and that made me
Environment.
feel very sad.
Sad, yeah.
And then I didn't want to draw him. I was like, no, I'm not gonna keep on making fun of this like fish. He's just very cute. I can't do this. So yeah,
I'm
I chose
sure he's very
another
appreciative.
character.
Blobfish generally are very appreciative of your
All
sympathy.
the blobfish community is like, what?
Yeah.
Finally. Yeah.
Barbara's our girl. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't want to draw him. This is kind of like the fish just completed all of his tasks, and now he's moving on to the next one. I hope we didn't speak too much on top of the film. People
No.
could still appreciate it.
People are loving this, by the way. Really
Thanks.
loving it. Lovely characters, like their personalities. Daryl's asking, what software was this done in? Now, is this largely
animation.
After Effects, isn't it?
It's After Effects, yes. There was something else for the 3D, but it was made because all the fish were modeled in 3D by our friend Ugo. I don't know what software he used, but he did such an amazing job. And he was super quick at it. Ugo Moraes, shout out. He did such a cool job with the characters, and then Chris, I think she animated the 3D characters, just because I prepare them kind of like to be animated on After Effects. I try to kind of like separate whatever was moving, but I'm also very thankful that they were 3D models, because separating stuff for animation, it's really complicated.
Yes.
So
indeed.
I also felt quite grateful that there were 3D models, and very good ones as well. They were super loyal to, I think you say loyal, right? To the
faithful
character.
Faithful too.
Exactly. Faithful to the design that I had made. And I think because I also used a lot of transparencies. I use a lot of transparencies in my work, and I also did with the fish. And Ugo did a great job at adapting that with the 3D. So that was it was very collaborative, the whole project. Kind of, because each one of us knew how to do something, and then we also tried to learn from each other. And we were sharing a studio at the time, and once there was no studio, we just kept on chatting and doing stuff
That's
together.
the beauty of collaboration, though, right? I've got a question for you as well. Just popping back a minute to the thing around mood boards. So I know a lot of people these days tend to keep digital mood boards. Yeah, I do too, but I also like things to be on the wall. I like physical things to be on the wall, because that way I walk past them and I'm sure that my brain is processing them without me knowing about it as I walk backwards and forwards. Is that something you do, or are you 100% digital? Or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
First of all, I hate printers. I love printed things, but I hate printers. They're always breaking. So I don't really have a way of printing what I see online and just putting it on the wall. So and I don't want to give money to printers. It's so annoying. So I try to keep everything digital. I'm a huge fan. I know I'm always talking about this, but I'm a crazy fan of Pinterest. I have I think I have my own system with it as well. But I also I think I also do a lot of kind of unconscious mood boarding. I think by watching a lot of movies, and I don't know, just being interested in kind of what's happening culturally. I think I do a lot of that kind of unconsciously, and I feel that I have kind of a library that I've been building just by exposing myself to I don't know, movies, weird culture stuff, I don't know, social media. I think it just gets a little bit in my brain, and I feel that whenever I have to work on something, it's a bit I think it's the Ansel and Gretel story, right? Where they have to follow the little bits of
trail.
And I feel that's what I do when I'm having ideas. I've kind of see something and I'm oh, okay, this is a good direction. And then I just follow it. And then I just have this, just crazy mood boards full of a lot of things. And I try to put there as much as I don't filter it at first at all. I'm oh, okay, yeah. For example, in this case, we had I think you guys can see here, there's a Mary Blair illustration, which was one of my idols. And there's like other stuff. There's also like a jazz cover, for example, which like doesn't really have anything to do directly with like deep sea creatures and animations, but the visual aspect of it and the vibe, I think we also wanted it to be kind of jazzy, if this makes any sense. Yeah. But to go back to your question, sorry, yes, I do everything digitally.
Yeah. And I mean, what you were saying just then about, mix the fusion of those things, taking some illustrations that aren't in that context, that's the very nature of creativity, right? I think the definition of creativity is taking things from which there is no ordinary link and bringing something new into the world as a result of the fusion of those elements. So
I'm super obsessed with thinking about the creative process. And this is something that I also had to kind of like become very aware and very clear with, especially with the teaching, because in the character design class, we teach kind of like a process of how to create a character. I know that like for every person, like their creative process is very personal, but we have to try and teach like a creative process. So this is something that I've been thinking a lot also for myself. I think once I had to teach a creative process, it became much more clear what mine was. Very chaotic, but it has, it has the chaotic part, and then it has kind of like the editing part. And this is, I think, what the mood boards are good for as well. It's like you put everything in there, and then you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense, this fits, this goes with that, and that's just how it goes. In terms of tools, like for mood boarding, we actually use Milanote, which is kind of like an online collaboration tool. Both me and Chris and Ugo, I think, as well, had access to the mood board, and we could just like drag and drop stuff and just write little comments like, I know this looks weird, but it has a motive to be here.
Yeah.
And then this is just like the tools we use to collaborate, like a lot of WhatsApp messages and WhatsApp voice messages as well, Illustrator as well, and Dropbox. These were the tools of the trade, so to say. And with this, we kind of like started working on the creative direction, kind of, because I worked on the character design, but also on the creative direction. And I think that the creative direction already had to be quite like mindful of the story we wanted to tell. So I feel that like the backgrounds and everything were also kind of like a little bit like a character in the terms of that they were also helping us tell this story. And we used like the same color palette for everything as well. We tried to keep it a bit reduced. So everything was kind of like clear and concise. Let me show you just some bits and bobs as well from the art direction. This was another thing because of the game aspect of the script. This was kind of like a new item appeared. We were very inspired by like, when you're in a game, you find an item and how it's shown, because I don't think the audience heard the audio of the movie, but there's a part where it says you just unlocked a new tool or something like that. We were very literal with everything.
We'll get a link. We'll get a link into the chat for that, so people can go watch it and listen to it later on. I'm a big fan of TED Ed anyway. I love TED Ed stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool. I think it was a very cool opportunity for me and for Chris to experiment. And it's kind of like a commission project, but it gives you a lot of space to, just try out and see, what you want to do, because they give a lot of freedom with the style. So this is a project that I really kind of like recommend people doing, honestly. We had such a great time. And it's a very good opportunity, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, let me just share. This is also stuff from the graphic, but I think we're all interested in the characters. And I just wanted to show this because my sketches are really, as you can see how they are, they're very sketchy. I don't do a lot of kind of like final sketches. I just try to sketch so I can have like a kind of like an idea of what I want the essence of the character to be, because I think sketching allows you to really just kind of like explore the personality of the character. And I think that it was kind of clear somehow when I looked at the fish, what kind of character they would have. I was also kind of helped by the script, because the script also gave us a lot of like indications. And for example, in the case of the hatchet fish, I just saw this character as such like really helpless character, because also he's so tiny. This is something that I also found out about like deep sea creatures, that they're very small. Most of them, I thought like, this is like a gigantic scary fish. No, they're tiny. And I think that when I learned how tiny they were, I kind of wanted to give them this feeling of like scary but silly. When a small dog barks really loud, I think this was kind of like the idea that I had with the characters. But yeah, so basically we had to turn this really weird fish into something that was kind of like, that people could feel empathy towards and would kind of like care for the journey of this character. And I also had to keep the design quite simple because of the animation, because we wanted to do a 3D, but we weren't really sure if that would happen or not. So I tried to keep it simple, but also kind of like fun and interesting. And that's why I added some of the shapes of the body. They're trying to like express the physicality and the anatomy of this fish and be faithful to it, but also kind of like synthesizing it, because I think that's what character design does. It kind of like synthesizes the essence of this animal, this person, and kind of like expresses it. And this is what we were trying to do. Some of the first pictures I saw of this fish were like frontal images where they had this like really big eyes and they seemed like they were kind of like screaming. So I really had to give him like really like bubbly eyes and just make him look a bit out of proportion somehow.
Yeah.
And this is the design that we ended up with. This is already the
so lovely
3D model that things that Hugo did. You can see that we kept all like the transparencies and all the beautiful like the colors and this kind of like overlay stuff. I was really, really like amazed to see the work that was done. And when I saw the fish rotating, I just couldn't stop screaming. It was like, complete dream come true for me. I will show you as well the anglerfish, because this is
I love anglerfish.
They're so cute. Look how tiny. This is a very tiny fish, but like it has this gigantic teeth that don't fit in his mouth, and like it's all wonky and weird. And I also wanted to give him like this kind of like dorky feeling, because they're so small and they seem so aggressive, but they're really not. As you can see, my wonderful sketches are very understandable for other people, but I managed to create the anglerfish. And this was also like a huge challenge for me to do the turnarounds. After I show you these guys, I can also show you like the file with all the turnarounds, because that was really challenging for me, because you really have to draw very well to be able to do a turnaround of a fish. And when Chris told me I had to do the turnarounds, I have to confess that I was like really scared. But I somehow managed. I used a lot of kind of like the squeezing like tools, and I used a lot of kind of like perspective stuff, so I didn't have to like redraw everything. And I also looked at a lot of Nemo character shapes, because they did such a good job with drawing those fish. I just had to some of the references. And this is another view of the anglerfish. We had this kind of like game stuff that we had to do, and we had like the stats. I think this was like bite, size, and deadliness. I don't know how much these actually fit the actual fish. I don't remember. But yeah, they had some stats and some specials. Like I think this, I think this game idea was also super cool and made us a bit more familiar with the character as well. I want to show you something else that I think it's kind of cool before we go to the Illustrator files is that for this specific animation, I mean, there were the main characters, but there were also kind of like secondary characters because, you know, it's such a kind of like nature-filled world, the deep sea. We think it's kind of like desertic and there's nothing there, but there are other fish there. And we also wanted to design kind of like the secondary characters to go with it. And Chris did an amazing job in animating them. And I also want to challenge people to find the farting fish because there's one which was kind of like a private joke, and me and Chris couldn't like stop laughing on the WhatsApp chat because we wanted this to be also a bit humorous, you know, because I think both of us are kind of like humorous people, and you know it's kind of a serious topic, but the script really demanded something that was a bit just more fun. And I think that the way the characters are moving around and the movement that Chris gave to them, I think it really makes a huge difference on how, you know, how the whole story is told, because all of these things come together to tell the story. And I think the secondary characters are also super super
I love that squid, by the way. It's just so fantastic.
I think really it also looks a bit helpless, like with the big eyes and everything. I also wanted to show you guys how it moves, because here you have a little bit of a better idea, because this was like krill and plankton, and this was just kind of like some shrimp and some crabs. I'm getting lots of words. Okay, so I think that maybe now do you want to see some Illustrator files?
Oh yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Let's see. All right, so this is basically the file that me and Chris were working at.
Chris hooked me up with Overlord for working between Illustrator and After Effects. I can't thank her enough for that. So good.
Yeah, it's a great tip. I think it really saved a lot of time for her as well.
It's a shame that functionality isn't native, that it just doesn't exist, that you have to have a third-party thing for it, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, just the time-saving stuff, because like animation and character design is something that sometimes ends up being a bit like time-consuming, and if you can get tools that make it easier and faster, just do it. I think that's for the best. Let me see. These are all the positions of all of the hatchet fish we have here. Sides, 3/4, back. This fish, I was really happy I didn't have to draw in 3/4 because I had no idea how to do it. Our friends from the studio were saying, just imagine a sausage. And I was like, no, I can't do this. This is impossible. But Ugu only needed actually like this and this view to make it. And I don't think we ended up having the mouth situation, because like some of these fish have kind of like really weird architecture, if this makes any sense to say. And I just had to kind of like find a way to make the mouth work, kind of like, you know, that it would kind of like rotate here, and if you would close it, I had to make sure that like if this would close, it would look like this and not something else. And that's definitely kind of like the challenges of drawing characters for animation. You kind of need to make sure that they are movable. It's a bit like, okay, like just standing there, it's one thing, but if you have to make them move, it's a totally different concept. So this is the dragonfish. We ended up kind of like changing the color for it, but because of that shining thing that I referred to before, but these are all of the characters. I think that I had a lot of fun working on the colors for this as well. This is something that I was talking about before, how kind of like difficult it is, because they have really like just boring colors, and I try to be kind of like faithful to their tones and tonalities, but also still create something that was fun and interesting, and also have this kind of like modernist vibe. That's something that I'm also very interested in. And here we can also see what the overlay stuff, because for example here I think I used the multiply for it, and probably somewhere else I used something else. And here we can also see the kind of try to create also kind of like shades of the different color with the multiply, and I think it worked quite well. In this case, I think it's the opacity stuff that I also referred to before, that I used on the fins. And I also used a lot of kind of like stroke work. And I have a couple of like downloaded strokes that I use that kind of help us give these very kind of like textured look that I like to keep. I didn't have it everywhere because sometimes they make my computer complain a little bit. The amount of stroke work I sometimes have makes it a bit like complainy, and I didn't have it everywhere, but here I definitely did, and here as well, just to give it a little bit of texture.
Yeah. So Magdalena was asking in the chat, and I've just answered her actually a little bit, but she was saying, how many angles do you have to make of one illustration so the animator can make it 3D? Now, my answer was 4 or 5 as a bare minimum. 8 or 9 is better, but essentially it depends on the production value, right? What you need, you know, how slow the thing is going to turn.
Yeah, and yeah, in this case, like for example, for the Anglerfish, I ended up doing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think it was good that we had them all, but like, of course, for example, this one, in this case, it's the same as this. So it's actually just like 3 or 4.
A reflection.
Yeah. I think it really depends, you know, like for example, on this one, I only needed these ones because Google could see exactly, you know, like how the fish looked over there. He also did like a 3D model. I think that he kind of like pasted the visual on it. So you only had to understand what the shape looked like kind of. So it really depends on the person, on the animator you're working with, or the project that you're working with, and I guess the animation software that's going to be used. I've also worked on another project where we had to animate cats and they were like kind of human. Wow. They were like human cats that were they were supposed to reflect kind of like millennial archetypes of people, and that was really fun. I had to find like a specific breed of cat that would make sense with the character, and then like transform them into, like, there was a musician cat that was a Persian cat. He was like a black metal musician, and that was really cool. But for that, I had to do, I think that side 3/4, front 3/4, the other side. I had to do all of it for that one because it was a different process. So that really depends. Yeah, but I think minimum, I would say, these 3. My students are always very unhappy when we do the turnarounds, and I'm as well. But it's definitely like something that it's needed to communicate all the views of the character, just so the animator can understand.
So I wonder, whenever I do that, I normally start with a frontal with that, and then I draw lines across.
Yes.
To do that, to make sure, is that the process I mean, it's a very common process, but the only reason I ask is in case you have, exactly that.
Yes, there were some lines, I think. Yeah, I did this. I think this is but I usually also start with the front, but because fish are so weird, I had to draw the side because it's just usually how you see them. And and then draw the front, which was a little bit challenging. The thing is just, I think that you have this idea of the character, and then when you draw them, the turnaround, they will always look a bit weird, but you just have to go on with it.
Go with it.
Care, because I know this looks very weird, but it is what it is as well. Do you do it by hand?
Yeah.
Or do you do it?
Well, a mixture. I think the last one I did was a pirate called Goldbeard, and I started that off in my sketchbook, and then once I'd got to that, I brought that into Fresco, and then I did the rest inside of Fresco because it just made it so easy to pop those lines in and move backwards and forwards between them. But yeah.
The lines are very helpful because then you know that everything has to say in the same place. Then it really helps you kind of like transport the character, even if it looks a bit weird at first, then you can just like move things around. And
well, I mean, generally those things are on very, very briefly anyway. So you can get away with a little bit in a turnaround because they're just a stage between, normally sort of a tween almost between, you know, a frontal and a profile. So it's, you know, quite often the way.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's for me, it's just something that I have to get on with it.
And that's the other thing. When's it going to get done?
Like, okay, I'll just do it. Okay, cool. Yeah, but this one, as I said, I was really glad I didn't have to do it. I think I dreamt about doing like the 3/4 version of this one. And I was just like, no, I don't want to do it. But also this was like, for example, a super simple shape as well. Like this was a bit more complicated. This one, for example, again, we also only did frontal, back, and side. And these ones didn't even have a turnaround because they were not really going to show up moving. And this
not only that, the jellyfish you wouldn't really tell.
It's all of them. It's like fourth dimensional. It's moving. You just don't see it.
Get the wiggle in the right place and you're done. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the new version of Illustrator. It animates immediately. Look at it. It's great. Yeah, but this one's didn't need it. And this one, I'm also glad I didn't have to do the turnaround because I don't think I would have like the drawing skills to do a turnaround of a weird squeeze. But but as I said, like it just depends a little bit. And also like this was like a project that had like a really reduced team to produce like a 5-minute video. And we also had to be a bit like smart about like creating like maximum effect with the least of the resources, I would say. But that's us. All right, so
Chris is in the chat, by the way. Chris has joined us on the chat. She's having a watch with us,
hello.
so she's there.
I hope I'm not explaining anything wrong regarding animation because it's still a field I'm starting to know. So please WhatsApp me if I said something wrong.
But do that later afterwards. She's doing a fabulous job, Barbara. Chris. He's actually saying it was so much fun to animate your characters. So yeah, very good.
It was a privilege. I think it's definitely like an illustrator's dream come true to have your stuff animated. And I think Chris just did a really great job. I'm like, yes, you did it. Yes.
She's epic. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Right. You said there were a couple of questions.
Well, we've kind of dealt with some of them as we've gone through. What was that? Did we cover did we go through the title screen that you showed there? Did you show that already?
No, this is actually like, this was a doozy. So I also had to draw water, which was really, really complicated. And it took me like days to be able to kind of like understand how to do this. I used a weird mixture. I think maybe this is something that's interesting for people to know as well, because I did a lot of like multiply and opacity work in here just to make sure that this worked. And I was kind of surprised because doing the water, I hope I will explain this properly. I thought that I had to create the darkness in the water, but actually I had to create the lightness as well. Yeah, and this was something that when I understood, then I could finally make it work. But it took me a long time to understand how to do it. And I know animating water and like doing water is one of the hardest things to do. But I think that's we finally made it. And this is basically the file of the first scene in the animation, where we did kind of like a
Down
movement with
pan.
the camera
Yeah,
going
yeah,
down.
yeah.
And this was just like the background, and it just kind of like had this show up and start. And actually, these are the actual letters for the Twilight Zone TV show. And I traced on top of them because I couldn't find the font, or I couldn't find a way to make it look good. So I traced them by hand, like the insane person I am. And we also make them a bit, I think that in the end, Chris also gave them kind of like a pixelated effect. So it also gives us more this kind of like game idea. So we kind of like kept on reiterating the ideas. You know, I think sometimes with animation and illustration and character design, you kind of like you have to, not that you have to say things twice, but you kind of have to, you know, confirm the idea with the different aspects of the design that you're doing. So this was also a good way to confirm kind of this game aesthetics that was going on parallel to this more kind of like modernist, kind of like bubblegum playful aesthetics, really. But yeah, this is a very heavy file that's full of stuff. There's also some kind of like grain overlays as well. Grain is something that I also work a lot with on Illustrator. This was kind of like a shape I did, so it could have these kind of like, I don't know, kind of like that the water was not always so uniform. It had these kind of like things going on, and I think
like a distortion.
Yes,
using it like a distortion. Yeah.
So a lot of kind of like workarounds with things to get this final idea. But I think then we figure it out. And I also really like this screen because it makes me think of kind of like the maps in the beginning of games. Some kind of like mobile games have these kind of like maps where you can like click and you have this like progression. And this was also kind of like a little bit the idea, because the fish goes up and it progresses kind of like also on a map in different layers of the ocean. So I think overall this game metaphor was really cool. It was not our idea, but the script was also, we also had good script material to work with.
Yeah, no, it's so I've got a couple of questions for you. So Lisa was asking, how do you color the characters? Everything in Illustrator and shadows. You're saying is
yeah, you can see here. I'm gonna go like, I have kind of like isolated these two characters because I also want to show you kind of like the sketch and the finalized character. This was the sketch, and then this is the character, and you can see here that the character has kind of like the fill and the stroke in the same color. I gave it this kind of like fuzzy stroke. I don't know if you guys can see it. As I said before, so it can be a bit more textured, but this is all colored on Illustrator. It's all vector, all Illustrator. I use a lot this tool here with the kind of like that makes the squares into circles. It's super helpful.
Yeah.
You know this one where
the corner widgets,
the corner widgets. That's like super cool. Actually, the fins, I also made them like this. So basically what I would do, I would have like something like this. And of course, like then do the kind of like opacity stuff. And then I would just like, just pull them to create kind of like a round shape, because I wanted this to be like round and flowy, but I also wanted it to be quite like geometric and kind of like clean as well. So I think this tool was like the perfect thing as well. And sometimes in the bodies, I would also even make stuff like this, make like a very like geometric body, more or less kind of like the shape that I wanted it to be. And then I would pull the corners to what I thought was a nice curve. This is like super practical and really like, I think for the style that I've been kind of like working on, it's very good, you know, and immediately you have something that looks a bit like a fish form. Of course, you can also like work it out, like maybe remove some of the stuff and then do it again. but I think it gives you already a good idea of what the shape can be. I mean, I had prepared here the goblin shark to kind of try and have a go at. I know it looks terrible, and I am not sure how good this is going to work, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how I did it, kind of like. It's probably won't look, as I said, it won't look as like the others, but
we've got about 5 minutes or so, just so you know. We can go over a little bit. It's okay. We can have you back. You can do it again.
Why not? This has been fun. Indeed, I was very nervous in the beginning, but I've been having loads of fun, so why not? Yes.
There you go.
But yeah, I can show you like super quickly, like something that I would probably do. And this is also kind of like how I started. I did kind of like this line work first. I didn't go with shapes first because I was working with my really weird rough sketches, and I needed to be sure that I could see them. So in this case, I would probably like pull the nose until to somewhere that I was kind of like satisfied. And I would just use like super simple shapes. Also because when you're working on like kind of a group of characters, you have to think of it as like a boys band. They're all different, but they all have things that are very similar between each other. They have to be read as a group. And in this case, I tried to keep like the shapes similar. For example, the eyes, they were all very similar, and all of them had these kind of like eye bags, because I thought that if they lived in the deep sea, probably they were always like in the dark, so they would kind of like have dark circles around their eyes. So I thought this could be a good idea. And then, for example, with this shape, I would just like completely pull it up and just do it like this. And maybe I can color it so you guys can see as well. I also worked a lot with like the color libraries. I'm very particular with color, and I always try to make sure I have access to the libraries as well. And this way I could like experiment super quickly with the colors. So basically I would do something like this. I would add kind of like the stroke as well. And then for this one, I would try and see what looked good. Probably I would add, like I said before, just use the same color or something very similar and then do multiply in this case, because then I could also play with it and make like this little rosy cheek stuff that I also really enjoy doing. And then they kind of like interact a little bit together. And I think that's also fun, you know, have different transparencies kind of like working together. So this is kind of like more or less what I would do. This, of course, white. This could be like a very kind of like darker shadow. And this is more or less like the recipe for a deep sea creature character, is to kind of make something super simple. And of course, then I would probably look at the the real animal and see if this made sense. One thing that I do, this is not very like Illustrator related, but I think it could be a good tip for working on characters that are not like super, it's not a cat, right? If it's a cat, I think it's a bit easier, but if it's something like a goblin shark, for me, it helps to see how people have already kind of like cartoonized it. And for example, I would look for like a plush toy or like a caricature or like even a scientific drawing, just to see what was the language, like the visual language that people were using to draw this character. And this was already like super helpful. And I did the same on these ones.
I cannot believe you found a plush toy of a goblin shark. That's amazing.
So cute.
That's amazing.
They're so cute. Yes, they're very nice.
Anyway, for now though, we're kind of out of time. I wish this could go on. I think what we'll have to do is we'll have to have you back for one of our master classes, so we can spend a bit longer and do some work on some of these things. It's great stuff. Well, people have really enjoyed it. There are a few things in the chat, so just very quickly, if I can just ask you, because Luca said, roughly how long did it take to complete the whole project from the sketches through to the final video? How long a job was it?
I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think it was November to March. I think
Well, yeah.
it was, I mean, also because like this was kind of like a side project. This was not like the main project that we were working on. I think if we had just like dedicated all of our efforts to it, it would have been less. But because both me and Chris were kind of like working on other stuff, and
Yeah.
also I had to do all the character work and all the art direction work first, and then Chris had to do the animation work. So we kind of did it like one did one thing, delivered the the box to the
And
other,
then off to
and the
hand over.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that was more or less the timeline, but it would have been shorter if we had dedicated our whole time to this. I don't know how long, but definitely shorter.
Fantastic. Well, I'll tell you, but I've just got to say, Maddie, I hope you feel better later on this week, lovey. I'm kind of sorry that you weren't able to make it here, but also not, because I really, really enjoyed this lunchtime. So get better soon, and thank you very much. Thank you so much, Bárbara, for spending this time with us. I'm sure we will have you back at some point in the near future. For the rest of the community, come along, join us in our Discord. You can chat to us there. And don't forget to book for Max. If you haven't got your Max arrangements sorted out, go do it right now. You can do it as soon as we're done here. But thanks, everybody. Thanks again, Bárbara. And
thank you so much for having me. It was
show's
really
back on Wednesday.
An honor. Yes.
Yep. No, it's all good. Me and David on Wednesday. So I'll see you then. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.